Good day, class. In this video, we shall be discussing the environmental law and sustainable development in the Philippines. This is a critical area of our discussion because it addresses how we can balance economic growth, social development, and environmental protection. Well, well, the Philippines has a comprehensive legal framework for environmental protection, and this is primarily managed by Department of Environment and Natural Resources DENR. This framework class is designed to ensure that the country's natural resources are well preserved not just for this generation but more so for the future succeeding generations. This allows for sustainable development. Okay? So let's take a closer look at some of the key environmental laws in our country. We'll start with number one, Philippine Environmental Policy. This policy serves as the overarching guideline for environmental protection. This emphasizes the sustainable use of natural resources and the integration of environmental considerations into all development plans. Example, when the government plans to build a new infrastructure project like highway, like a dam, or whatsoever it is, the first thing that has to be considered is the impact of this project to the forest, to the rivers, to the wildlife, and other factors that would affect the healthy ecology. Okay? Now, the Clean Air Act, Republic Act number 8749 class. This aims to reduce air pollution and improved air quality. This law regulates the emission of pollutants from vehicles, industries, and other possible sources. Example, the law requires industries to install pollution control devices to reduce the release of harmful gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. If and when the company is not compliant with the Clean Air Act, their license to operate could possibly be revoked. Okay? And number three, the Clean Water Act, Republic Act number 9275. This focuses on protecting the water bodies from pollution. Okay? It prohibits the discharge of untreated wastewater into rivers, lakes, and other bodies of water. If a certain company is found dumping waste into a river, the company can face legal consequences under this Clean Water Act. Okay? Because the DNR has been working with local governments to monitor water quality in major rivers like the Pasig River, no? Which has been heavily polluted for a lot of decades already, class. So, number four, Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. This addresses the proper management of solid waste. Okay, this law, Republic Act number 9003, mandates the local governments to establish waste management programs, and it includes recycling and composting initiatives. Say for example, the law requires households and businesses to segregate their waste into biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and hazardous materials. No, malata, dili malata, o kaning kuyaw nga mga materyales. So this kind of policy actually stems from the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. In some cities, you know what, students, like Davao, local governments have implemented strict waste segregation policies. And as a result, this significantly reduces the amount of waste sent to landfills. Okay? So Davao City could be, an exemplary city to all other places in Philippine archipelago. Now, all of these laws, class, the Philippine Environmental Policy, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, collectively form the backbone, yes, undoubtedly, of the environmental protection in our motherland. This ensure, these laws ensure that development does not come at the expense of the environment. Development, urbanization, improvement of infrastructures, yes, it's not wrong to have this progress so long as it does not damage the environment, so long as it does not uh, perpetuate irreparable damages to our ecology. Because otherwise, we Filipinos, shall be suffering from its consequences if we do not preserve the environment. And worst case scenario, the future Filipinos of the next generation would not possibly enjoy the healthful ecology that we have in our lifetime. Okay? Now, legal framework for sustainable development. This is about ensuring that economic growth, social development, and environmental protection go hand in hand. The Philippines, class, has several laws that support sustainable development. Okay? First one, Climate Change Act or Republic Act number 9729. This law establishes the framework for addressing climate change in the Philippines. It includes measures to reduce greenhouse gases emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change. Because you know what? This law mandates the development of renewable energy sources like the solar and wind power to reduce our reliance to fossil fuels. So the Philippines is one of the most, you know, we're one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change with rising sea levels, knowing that our country is archipelagic. This threatens coastal communities, and this increases the frequency of typhoons that hit the entire Philippines, class, like the Bagyong Yolanda, the Bagyong Odette. So we have to learn from our mistakes and start to do the environmental protection to have a sustainable development on top of the economic growth. I mean, there has to be an equilibrium between sustainable development and economic growth. Social development and, yeah, environmental protection have to be maintaining the balance. Okay? Next, Renewable Energy Act, Republic Act number 9513, promotes the use of renewable energy like the one that I mentioned. Okay? Um, the sources of, the solar, the wind, and the hydro also, hydropower. So the power that comes from the water. This, this law provides incentives for businesses and individuals to invest in renewable energy projects. Like a company that installs solar panels on its factory can benefit from tax incentives and subsidies. Okay? Recently, class, the government has been encouraging the use of solar energy in rural areas where access to electricity is, very limited. Next, Philippine Agenda 21. This is a comprehensive plan for sustainable development that was adopted in 1996. This outlines strategies for achieving sustainable development in several sectors like agriculture, education, the health sector, and so on. So this Philippine Agenda 21 encourages us or encourages the use of sustainable farming practices to protect soil and water resources. In some regions, you know, farmers have adopted organic farming techniques. This technique reduces the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, thereby protecting our highly precious environment. So all of these legal framework for sustainable development class, these laws and policies ensure that development um, is sustainable, meaning it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, the environmental impact assessment and regulation. This process is a critical tool class to ensure that proposed projects do not harm the environment. Okay? So this EIA process involves the following steps: scoping, impact assessment, mitigation measures, public participation, and decision making by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources or DENR. Let's start with scoping. Scoping is the first step where the scope of the project and its potential environmental impacts are being defined. Okay? Example, if a company wants to build a new factory, the scope, the scoping process will identify the areas that could possibly be affected, such as the nearby water bodies or communities. Hence, the DENR will work with the company to determine which environmental factors need to be considered, such as air and water pollution, the noise, and the traffic. So if you take a closer look, during the scoping stage, DENR is heavily involved because even prior to to the execution, prior to building of the new infra project of the company, the DNR already scrutinizes its possible impact. Okay? So let's now talk about the impact assessment, the stage number 2. So this stage class, this impact assessment, it assesses the potential environmental and social impacts of the project. Okay? Now, if the factory is built, it may lead to air and water pollution, which would need to be assessed. The company would conduct studies to measure the potential impact on the local environment, no, such as the amount of pollutants that could be released into the air or the water. So in this stage, it's the company's initiative to determine what could possibly be the impact of this would-be built factory to the water and to the air. Okay, the next stage is mitigation measures. Based on the impact assessment, these mitigation measures are proposed to minimize, if not totally eliminate, the negative unpleasant impacts. Like the company might be required to install pollution control devices, the one that I mentioned minutes ago, okay, to reduce the emissions. In some cases, you know what? The company may need to redesign the project to avoid sensitive areas like the protected forest or wetlands, matters like that, class. So let's go to stage number 4, public participation. This is a key component, you know what? of the process. Why? Because stakeholders, when we say stakeholders, we are referring to all the people involved, not just the company, not just the government, but more so the community who might be affected with the factory that is about to be built. Okay? So, stakeholders may also involve the local, the non-government organizations and the rest of the government agencies. So, all of these stakeholders are invited to provide input on the project. That's why it's called public consultation or public participation. Okay, I'll give the example. If the factory to be built in a residential area, the people living nearby, the residents, can voice out their concerns about potential noise or potential pollution. Panalitan, ang negosyo sa mga factory is uh, kanang hog racing, no? Nagbuhi sila baboy. So, these people who live adjacent to the factory might be might be so concerned with the smell, the foul odor coming from the feces of these pigs. Okay? So through that, the DENR will hold public consultation, yeah, just to gather the feedback and ensure that whatever the community's concerns are being addressed properly. Then the last stage is decision making by the DENR. So finally, the DENR in this phase reviews the environmental impact assessment report and makes a decision on whether or not to approve the project, or the project may require modification or reject the project altogether. Okay? Like, if the project really poses significant environmental risk to the people, to the environment, the DENR may require additional mitigation measures before approving it. Or in some cases, the DENR may also impose conditions on the project, such as requiring the company to monitor its environmental impact over time, close monitoring and close feedbacking. If and when the promised measures are not being upheld, are not being kept by a certain company or factory, so the DNR has all the right to to you know uh, to revoke the license of operation. Okay, in coordination with other government agencies, of course. So let's examine now, class, the two major environmental law cases in the Philippines. These are all jurisprudence, part of these are decided by the Supreme Court. And take note of this. Cases decided by Supreme Court are called as jurisprudence, and these jurisprudence have a similar effect like that of an enacted law. Okay? So, let's talk about the Oposa Facturan. This landmark case established the principle of intergenerational responsibility, which means that the government has a duty to protect the environment for future generations. In this case, just to tell you a summary, this involves a group of minors, a group of people represented by their parents. A group of minors represented by their parents sued then the Secretary of Environment Fulgencio Facturan to stop the issuance of logging permits. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the minors, in favor of the petitioners, stating that yes, they had a right to a healthy environment, a healthy ecology, not just for themselves, but for the generation to come. That's why this Oposa Facturan case is called as the intergenerational responsibility is being recognized. And it is everyone's business to preserve the healthy ecology, class. And this is so significant. As I tell you, this recognizes the environment is not just, a resource for the present generation, but but a legacy for future generation. It sets a precedent that the government must consider the impact of its actions on future generation when making decisions relative to the environment. Now, I mean, the next popular case is Manila Bay Cleanup Case class in 2019. This emphasizes government accountability in environmental protection because in this case, the Supreme Court ordered the government to clean up Manila Bay, which had become heavily polluted due to untreated wastewater, the garbage, and other industrial harmful discharges. And so the cleanup drive involved various government agencies class. I guess you were able to hear this one on the news during this period. Like the local governments participated, the private sector participated as well. The DNR led the cleanup by removing the tons of garbage from the bay and implementing measures to reduce pollution from nearby industries and communities. So this case highlights once again the importance of government action in addressing environmental issues and ensuring that public resources are being used responsibly. Okay? So these two cases class demonstrate the role of the judicial branch in enforcing as well the environmental laws and holding the government and private entities accountable for the damages they may have caused to our environment. So obviously class, these legal frameworks that we have just talked about, the key laws such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, these are tools, mechanisms to ensure sustainable balancing economic growth and environmental and social considerations. This maintains the balance. Okay? And the environmental impact assessment, you know what? It is highly important and significant because whatever the proposed projects should not or must not harm the environment. Like like the principle of intergenerational responsibility in the case of Upusan Facturan and the government's accountability in environmental protection class, this jurisprudence have set important precedents for environmental protection. Okay? So thank you so much for your attention. It is hope that you have learned something significant of our discussion about this topic, the environmental laws in the Philippines class. So whatever the questions that you have, can we reserve that for our face-to-face meeting. So goodbye everyone. Thank you.